Welcome to Water Tech Talk, your dive into water treatment business and technology.
So welcome on over to the first episode of Water Tech Talk. And it's only appropriate that we kick it off with Souheil Benzzerouk, the founder, the CEO of Canopus Water Technology. Souheil, thank you for taking a few minutes to sit down with me. I know you got a lot going on. But, to kind of dive right into it here for the sake of the time that everybody's, investing to listen in here today. Can you start by telling us a little bit about, of course, Canopus Water Technologies and, what inspired you to start the business in the first place?
Well, thank you for having me, Samir. It's a pleasure to be here. Canopus started in 2017, and I see it more of a natural progression to a career that started with actually designing and developing ozone sensors and ozone generators for water treatment. And after a journey between startups and large corporations, so I decided to embark on this journey. And it was an event actually that triggered the idea to look into the water space, if you will. So I'm from New Hampshire, and New Hampshire is known for its quality air and quality water. Yet at some point in 2016, we received the boil notice and quickly followed by don't use notice because there was an incident of PFOAs in our water. A quick research revealed that the situation was dire in the sense that we had not just PFOAs, we had issues or towns that had E. coli, other towns like the Seacoast that had a Legionella outbreak. So this led me to research it a little bit more. And, fast forward 6 months later, and Canopus came to life.
Wow. Now, this isn't the first time here, of course, that you've started a business. So I guess my question is, what is the mission of Canopus? I think you kind of just touched on it a little bit, but what is the bigger overall mission of Canopus?
The mission, as stated in all of our documentation, is to make technology serve people and businesses by providing water to the highest possible quality. As a technologist, I've seen technologies going into high-value markets, but I realized that they didn't make it to the most essential commodity, that is water. So basically, the idea is to bring these technologies to this essential market, but to do it to the highest standards and to be the best company when it comes to disinfection. And disinfection is basically safety.
Got it. And, Elon Musk is obviously is known for a great quote when somebody asks him to describe entrepreneurship. He says it's like chewing on glass and staring into the abyss. So it's only appropriate to ask you, what are some of the challenges and difficulties that you've been facing with Canopus? I mean, of course, I get to see behind the scenes, but for the listeners, the viewers, the customers, what are the difficulties and challenges?
Yeah. Well, the question is where to start. As you said, this is not my first startup. I was involved in 3 previous companies that did well, but every time you learn something new, you learn a new challenge. In the case of Canopus, the first challenge was actually the market itself. The water treatment market is a risk-averse market. And personally, I believe in the idea of disruption. So when you bring something to market, it cannot be a Me Too product that is slightly modified, but rather a full disruption of the way people do things. So our first product was a major disruptor in the non-chemical disinfection. But quickly, I realized that it's not something that is welcomed. It's not something that is easily accepted or digested. So we had to pivot towards a technology that's more accepted by the market, but done in a new way, or the implementation was different. And that led to the UVC LED products. So the difference here is, instead of using mercury vapor lamps, which have all sorts of issues, we pivoted towards LEDs and following the trends of, as I said, high-value markets like lighting and automotive. So we brought LEDs to a market that needed that upgrade. That's just number one.
Understood.
But challenge number two, we were the lucky team that started a company right before COVID. So right after we had our what we call MVP, COVID hit, and we literally had to meet scientists and engineers in a parking lot to really hand them samples. Because again, as a new company, you go through the cycle of validation, and that was a difficult couple of years.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And you also mentioned that you found a gap in the market. I know that you kind of touched on it a little bit, but if you can expand and elaborate on that gap.
Yep, absolutely. So the water treatment segment is fairly long and large, and it's divided into two sections. So you have the utilities, and then you have the last mile, if you will, and we play in the last mile. And that space is segmented. So you have the filtration people, and then you have the disinfection, and then you have the installers or dealers, and so on and so forth. So you get all these segments, and we realized that there is a skills gap because although it's a multidisciplinary area, it's dominated by biologists, environmental engineers, or civil engineers. Not much from a product perspective, not much product people. And product people who look at things systemically, meaning from, when we say the last mile, the whole mile, not just my portion of the mile. So that was the gap that we found, and we tried to cover it by, or address it, I should say, by partnering with others who have expertise in their areas, and then bring them together to the same table and start fresh.
Absolutely. And looking, now that we've shared a little bit about the past of Canopus, and I guess some history behind Canopus, what do you see as what would you say is the future vision of Canopus goals?
Yeah. Well, as I said, we want to make sure the best technologies make it to the most essential markets or segments, and water treatment is basically life. So really, we want to make sure the highest and most developed technologies make it to this space. And we have to look at things that are beyond what we have looked at in the past. So if you look at disinfection in the past, people were focused on a couple pathogens, but due to changes, including the environment and so on and so forth, we're seeing emergent contaminants. And really our goal is to be at the forefront of that, to be ahead, to be present, and to do things right. So we are developing products for not only known pathogens, but also emergent contaminants. Obviously, we're known for our UVC LED product, but that's just the beginning. I should have said product family because it's getting very large at the moment. But we're also developing products for emergent issues and contaminants, and that's our ethos. Our ethos is to be at the technology forefront.
Absolutely. And then in closing, is there something else you would like to add here? But actually, before you go ahead and answer that question, for let's say for folks that are more curious about the water quality side of things, what is that piece of advice you would give to folks who would think that their tap water is perfectly fine and perfectly safe to drink?
I think we need a paradigm. As I said, New Hampshire is one of the best states when it comes to its environment. And if in New Hampshire we had to deal with those issues, the rest of the country will deal with or has dealt and will be dealing with more severe issues, and the rest of the world as well. We don't look at water as a regional market or issue, but rather global. So the idea that our water here is cleaner than the rest of the world is a misconception. There are some countries that have better water, and others that have much worse water quality. So what we look at is really from a global perspective, water quality and scarcity. So if it's not available, you have to look at reuse and other solutions like water banking and so on and so forth. And if it's available, is it clean? And the majority is not. So we look at it as global, and we look at it as ever changing. So with an aging infrastructure, you have to make sure, or the paradigm, I should say, is to take matters, in our own hands, or to our own hands, where we start looking at treating our water internally, meaning the homeowners will start to install, their filtration system or fully integrated treatment systems to make sure the water is, number one, clean, palpable, and safe. ROs are becoming a major, accepted, but ROs again remove minerals, so you have to mineralize. Same thing if you have a carbon filter, there's a potential for bacterial growth, then you have to have disinfection. There are emergent contaminants that we didn't look at in the past, we have to look at those. So there is a paradigm where every homeowner or every business owner has to pitch in to make sure at the end of the day, they or their customers or their guests are safe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And looking beyond just Canopus and the UV space, is there any other technologies that preferably pique your interest or kind of, that get you a little bit excited that you're seeing out there in the space?
Absolutely. I mean, again, when I started Canopus, the idea was not to go for after UV alone, but rather disinfection holistically. And actually, to be more specific, non-chemical disinfection. So personally, I've looked at ozone, plasma, and other ways, combination of these elements to provide the highest disinfection standard. So we are in the process of developing other technologies that I'll save for another date.
Sure.
But yes, I mean, there are emergent contaminants that require something more direct to those issues.
Got it. All right. And personally, I just have one more question for you, because you did mention early on in the conversation that, it's not easy to adopt new technologies, or at least when it comes to legacy systems, as you mentioned, that are already in place. What do you see as some of the factors that really cause people to be open to new technologies? Is it usually just pricing? Is it ease of application? What would you say it is?
Well, it's all of the above. When you think of ease of application is key. So if we want this paradigm to take place, you want to make sure the homeowner is comfortable with making the install themselves, which means that it has to be easy to install. The maintenance has to be breeze. Integration into modern home, like through IoT, has to be implemented. Support for water treatment specialists that installs or maintains has to be there. So it's a multi-pronged approach. Pricing is its own challenge because, again, the benchmark was set up by a technology that was developed 60 years ago and has plenty of manufacturing efficiencies and so on. So for us, as the newcomer, new technology, using LEDs that are not as efficient, both in performance and pricing, was a challenge. I think I mentioned it to you once that we used to buy them at $100 per LED. Comparing that to buying a full system for a whole house unit for $500, it was a losing proposition. So if you're competing with legacy technology and if you are a disruptor, you have to make sure you're competitive, and we're getting there. We're getting there, but through the help of LED manufacturers because they have built efficiencies and now there are economies of scale. And at the same time, we built our systems in a way that is conducive for lower cost without having to go to lower cost countries for manufacturing. So the labor content in our products is extremely low, which means that we could manufacture it here at our backyard in New Hampshire and still maintain that competitiveness. So yeah, we're doing all sorts of things to make sure it makes it to the market.
Perfect. And in closing, is there anything else you'd like to add for our listeners or our viewers?
Absolutely. Again, I'm glad to be here. It's a pleasure to share our story, but also open the door for partnerships and collaborations. We're working with several partners to build larger systems, integrated systems, complete solutions, and at every point in the value chain. So anywhere from the final installer to people who build integrated systems for emergency or bottling plants and things like that. We're building those partnerships, and the future is bright, both from a business perspective. Water is a growing market. At the same time, it's extremely large. So we're making our mark and slowly gaining market share and growing. But from a technology perspective, we're making advances that are significant and are proving to be performing technologies, as well as, I think I mentioned it before too, and it's part of our mission. We understand that water has an inherent social aspect to it, and we want to make sure that we don't partner with only businesses to grow together, but rather with also with nonprofits to make sure that we bring this value to the people who need it the most, who are in dire need, and do that effectively, efficiently, and be impactful.
Souheil, it's been a pleasure. Is there any way people can get in touch with you, or somebody wanted to get in contact with you directly in regards to any of the things that you just mentioned there, whether it be charity, partnerships, collaborations? What would be the best way to do so?
Obviously, we're very accessible, so we have the general mailbox, and several of us have access to the info line, so we'll be able to get back to you very quickly. I'm also very, very active with the Water Quality Association and other organizations, so we'll be available during all these events. So,
Right.
The door is open.
Perfect. Souheil, thank you so much for your time.
All right.
This has been a pleasure. We'll see you soon again.
All right. Thank you.